Good evening. This is the Athens City Shade Tree Commission meeting for May 10th, 2012. I believe we've got one right-of-way issue that someone would like to bring to us. So if you would like to come up to the podium, introduce yourself and explain what you brought before us.
My name is Keith Morrow, and I represent First Presbyterian Church right next door. And I'm from the property committee, so we maintain the building. And our concern is the gum trees that are along Washington Street. Those trees have gotten so big that the branches are up against our building and causing erosion of the brickwork and erosion of the finishes on the edges of the roof. And I've come here today to find out what can be done to alleviate that situation. We don't want to cut the trees down. We think they're beautiful trees, but we also need some relief on our building.
Very good. I think Ron might have the answer.
I've hired Total Tree Care to do the trimming on those trees. I don't know when he's scheduled to do that, but it has been contracted out.
It has been contracted out? Okay. Well, then you answered my question. Thank you very much.
That was simple. Okay. Well, thank you for bringing it along, and we've been able to resolve it quickly. It's good. Good. Okay. I don't have any other right-of-way issues. We have no landscape ordinance issues at this meeting, but I'm expecting perhaps as many as 4 for the next meeting. I'll forward the information on to you as I get it. I know there's 152 Mill Street, which is the Title 41 action. I'm not sure what to call it, but it comes under Title 41, where we have to review the landscape plan for it as part of that process. And that's the documents are at the city website, but I'll send you the link once I've got everything together. Ron, can we have your report?
Sure.
Thank you.
The tree at 24 Far Hills, Michelle Kane's tree. I don't know if any of you were able to make it out there to take a look at it, but
I couldn't find it.
it's far off. It's actually pretty far off the street. It's probably about 15 feet back. However, I know we talked about removing it. I decided to do a root prune.
Okay.
Because I couldn't justify taking that healthy tree down. So we pruned the roots and cleaned up the yard, and we'll see how that goes. I'll monitor the tree to see if there's any significant stress next year or any epicormic growth this year. So I did want to update you on that. On Joneswood at the bend near Columbia, there is a row of trees at 31 Joneswood, I believe. There's 5 of them that are dying. I think we need to take them down. So if you want to take a look at those, if you get an opportunity. I do not. I just was looking at the condition they were in and wasn't thinking species at the time. So they didn't look healthy at all. And there's also a couple of sugar maples at the intersection of West State and North Schaefer, across from Stu Mack, Stuart McDonald, that are dropping limbs on vehicles. I think they're okay. They're older trees. I didn't see a whole lot of deadwood, but I think if we do some deadwood pruning, they'll be okay.
Where is this now?
It would be on the southwest corner of that intersection of State and Schaefer, which is Stuart McDonald. Economy Supply would be on your left, coming on up Schaefer. Just to the right, there's 2 sugar maples. They're pretty good size. And David and I spoke a little bit prior to the meeting. There's a tree at the 317 board that that Ann Bonner did review and recommends that it come out in November. However, I was unable to find it, so I don't know if it's in the city right away or not. So I'll have to get back with those folks and see what the condition of that tree is or where that tree is. Arbor Day. I have an idea. I'd like to run it past you to see if you would like to do it. Actually, 2 ideas. I know that we missed the official Arbor Day celebration, however, we can proclaim it whenever. I was thinking maybe doing an activity at West State Street Park where we just built the new bike path extension and bridge. And we planted a number of trees there, and they probably need a little bit of early TLC. Maybe have a pruning workshop, mulching workshop, and other educational opportunities. Maybe plant a couple trees and show how to plant trees. If we do it before June or late August, early September, we can have children from the schools involved. So I'd like to have that opportunity.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, I like the idea of the educational activities
Yes.
too. Practical.
We've often included children, but I think that would carry it a little bit farther than we often have in the past.
Yeah, and I think that we do a good job with mulching. We show mulching, I think, every year with our Arbor Day celebration. So I think that we need to continue that. But I don't recall doing any pruning workshops or actual field work for people to watch proper pruning technique. And planting a tree is always good. So we can plant a 2-inch tree or something like that and dig the hole, do the proper dimensions and show that process so that people understand it.
Very good.
Yeah, it's a good idea.
Is there any preference on date? Do you want to wait till later in the summer, or do we want to try to get this rolling?
Would it be practical to try to organize it before the very end of school when the kids get really busy?
I don't know. That's a good question. I know that we have 2 good weeks left, I think, and I think that's pushing it. We can do something over the summer. However, I don't know if we'll have a good outreach towards the kids unless we do something at the community center. And we can do the exact same thing in Bicentennial Park. Those trees are about 2 years old now, and they could probably use some pruning.
What about at the beginning of school next fall?
I think that's a good time as well.
September's often a reasonable time in weather terms, is to plant something.
Yes.
It's not too
Yes.
stressful for a tree to go in at that time.
I think that from the standpoint of timing for the trees, that might be better than midsummer at the community center.
I think so too. I think it's better. It's a better time of year, especially if, like David said, if we're going to plant something, it's a better time to do it. So we roll with that.
Yeah.
The pruning workshop, mulching, plant a tree, have something at West State Street Park or at East State Street.
Yep.
Either one. Okay.
You probably want to talk to the principal of the school, whichever you choose, and make sure that that's a good time for them.
I could use some help organizing it. So if anybody wants to work with me offline, I'd welcome it.
If you're doing it in September, I should be able to help.
Excellent.
And West Elementary would be a logical school choice.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly. And typically it seems like we involve East Elementary a lot during our Arbor Days. I don't know if we get West very often. So.
I'd be glad to help you with that part of it.
Excellent.
I think East is just because of location close to where we can plant trees, that's all. If it's reasonably close to West, then I expect they would be interested.
I think they'd be interested.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Other than that, I don't really have anything to report other than Athens Beautification Day was a resounding success, and I took a group of about 30 volunteers to East State Street Park, and we mulched all the trees in Bicentennial Park and weeded them and got outside of Bicentennial Park because we had a lot of mulch, and did some around the dog park, and other groups did some work, Project Plant and we mulched a lot of trees. So I think that was a great opportunity for the community to do something positive, and I'd like to include that in our Tree City USA report for volunteer service.
And the more people you involve with proper mulching, the more we may be able to start educating the public.
Yeah, it was funny because when we first started at the Bicentennial Park, the volunteers were taking the mulch and just dumping it around the tree, and I'm going around saying, no, we got to dig it back, we got to walk through, take it, pull it back, and once they figured that out, they started to do that, and it looked really good. So it was fun. But they understand the concept, but not everybody pulls that mulch back still, and that happens at a lot of our developments. And if we can think about it, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea when we do Title 41 reviews to include best practices for mulching and pruning, just as a part of that review process from the Tree Commission.
Yeah, we focus on planting, but
yeah, because if you go and look at the assisted living facility on Columbus Road, the trees they're mulched way too deep. They're over the first order lateral root, and it's heaped, and the trees weren't planted well. They're leaning already. It's like they were just sat in and the dirt wasn't put back. It's just the hole was dug and the tree was set, and let's move to the next tree. Let's just fill it with mulch. So
they did not use shade trees where we expected either, did they?
That's a good question.
I mean, I was out there when the leaves were off the trees, but it looked to me as though almost the whole circle, the drive around the whole facility, was planted with calorie pears. There was I didn't get out of the car and examine them carefully, but most of them appeared to me to be calorie pears with some little pears still left on the trees. There were a few that looked like maples near the front.
I think they included a lot of the trees that are on it would be the south side of the complex that were already there. I think those were included in the plan. We
talked about that when some of us on the Tree Commission went out to look about it, but it was my understanding that they were to plant some shade trees around the facility, and there were none around the actual facility. You know, we were saying it would be good to have some of the windows shaded.
I think they planted blue spruce and stuff in those areas where the windows
There's some decorative trees planted around there. But my memory is that only decorative trees inside the drive, and the trees on the outside of the drive, I questioned whether they were actually, for the most part, shade trees.
I have I can get a list of what was planted from Jessica Dine.
Okay.
We can see what they planted.
Yeah, and the code office do have a copy of the plans, I believe. And the way that was one of our first done under the revised Title 37, where there had to be planting around the impermeable areas, the building areas, and so on. And the rest of it was left because they have more than 40% coverage of the lot with trees. And so that aspect of it we just left alone. We didn't bother worrying about planting on the sides of the property. But around the building there were to be some shade trees, as you say.
Yeah, there was some concern about a view on one side, but
yes,
but that was it.
Yeah, but you can easily get around that by planting reasonably large shade
Which I
trees.
believe was our recommendation, yeah.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, thank you. I don't have any updates on the Emerald Ash Borer. So I think we'll just move to the policy that I circulated. I gather, Emily, you've got some additional comments that you'd like to make about it. So,
Well, under specifications, the sentence that starts with the depth of the hole,
Yeah.
I'm concerned about the way the root flare is discussed there. It appears to be an afterthought, and in that particular sentence, and I think it should be emphasized. I would suggest a sentence after clear branches to 8 feet. If the root flare is exposed, uncover it. And then the next sentence, the depth of the hole should be the depth of the root ball.
That's simpler.
Yeah. And I think the sentence to keep the soil line at or just below the level, we don't want it below because then it can collect water and that could be bad for the tree.
Oh, yeah, I know where that comes from. It was to do with how the tree was grown. And that's what we're trying to say. But we don't have to say it. I mean, we can take out that piece and just leave it at the depth of the tree, the depth of the hole to be just the depth of the hole to be the depth of the root ball. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Something with the clear branches of 8 feet, and I think I mentioned this before, but I've looked at a lot of the city trees and they're not cleared at 8 feet. They're at my eye level. Is that so? I mean, with time, I mean,
Right, there's
you know,
supposed to be, but
but that's not gonna.
our public work staff concentrates more on the street side than the sidewalk side. So we're not always clearing the sidewalks to 8 feet. We do when we can, but where our focus is more on the vehicular travel lane.
Okay.
And we have a rotation where we try to do the sidewalks. And,
Well,
and it grows faster than our rotation often.
But some of the new trees that we put in, if you clear it to 8 feet, you only have a tiny little canopy
Right.
there, so you can't do it.
Exactly.
So what do we put in here to?
Well, you tell me how high a branch should be on Court Street before anyone's gonna tear it off.
Well, okay, so we're gonna let the guy
I mean, that was part of the driving force to get it to 8 feet. And in fact, if you read the ASTM standards, 8 feet, clear branches to 8 feet is one of the standards for nurseries to conform to
Okay.
when they're growing trees.
So we're gonna have just.
They're
Enforce
expensive
that.
trees.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this has been pointed out as the issue. But what we're trying to deal with here are people planting trees close to sidewalks and trying to develop a specification for those trees.
Okay.
And so that's where this is coming from.
I mean, but is this kind of a standard that no one's really gonna meet? Originally, when you put in a fresh tree to 8 feet.
I think if we're going to include that, we should have some type of alternate language or along the lines of, unless the tree is protected with fencing or something like that. If we're going to try to enforce that, I think it's going to be difficult. But if we can write additional language where, if we're going to require an 8-foot clearance on the lowest branch, that might not be healthy for the tree. So we should probably try to include language to protect it if it doesn't.
Because there was all those
Clearance.
trees on Court Street, and for a while they had full branches, but just recently you pruned them up and it's a nice good bowl. It's going to fill out, no one can rip anything down, and if they do, it's the little branches that are coming off anyway, so good for them.
And also, we could think about trees planted in the B2D zone must be this type of structure. Like a more narrow columnar type tree where it is not going to grow with that spread.
Yeah, that's.
But unless there's a fairly wide right-of-way, some of those columnar trees get pretty wide.
Oh, yeah, we'll still have to lift them periodically, but I think initially we might get trees that are going to grow narrower and more columnar in structure initially. So they might be more tamper resistant, I guess would be
Okay. They also do not provide as much shade if we're thinking of shade over parking lots and that sort of thing. But maybe for Court Street, that's a good idea.
it's a balancing act, really.
Again, what we're trying to do is deal with the situations where we're against sidewalks and we're in highly trafficked areas.
Yes,
That's
yes.
where this is mainly done. And it says right at the beginning, unless a specific variance is granted. So, as Anka mentioned previously, when we were looking at people using the right-of-way on Columbus Road, clearly it doesn't matter because there isn't a sidewalk there. But when you come to, say, East State Street, and you're coming round the corners close to this building here on East State Street, then you're dealing with highly trafficked areas. And if somebody's going to want to conform to 37 by putting trees in the right-of-way, then they're going to be close to people. And that's what we're, now, as Ron says, we could, as an alternate to having the height requirement, have the, what do you call those things? The tree guards, isn't it? Yeah. We could require them to put a tree guard around it. And the tree guard is certainly going to help keep the tree in place.
When I read this, I had the impression that this was more 8 feet for public safety, poking eyes, things like that.
No.
But it seems to be it's more than
This is to try and defend the trees. Yeah.
Well, I also wonder, although we're talking about planting a tree, whether that could be prune branches to 8 feet. That's the ultimate goal, is that they're clear.
Well, they have to be
that
pruned.
height, but
They'll be pruned to 8 feet on the sidewalk side and 13 feet on the roadside once they start to spread.
Right.
It's almost like if it's below 8 feet, you almost want to you don't want to prune the branches, but you want to cut it in such a way so if someone tries to rip it off, it'll be a clean break. I don't even know if you could do that. Mark down.
So tree notch.
Like a lizard's tail.
I don't know.
Well, we can come back to this one again. I mean, clearly Emily's suggested some different language for that part, and it's only a policy. We just have to try and come to consensus on that. But other people have raised the 8-foot issue as to why that high, and my answer is, well, we're trying to protect the trees, but maybe there's another way to protect them that would be better, and that would involve putting the tree guards around them.
How would that, seriously, how would that change anything? If you have a tree, you could still grab the branch and pull it down, so.
Yeah, but you can't pull the trunk over and split.
That's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I wasn't understanding what you were talking about.
Often the damage is that they break the trunk off of a tree that is too much diameter.
So they're using the branches as leverage to break the tree. Okay, now I understand. I thought you were talking about that. I wasn't getting that.
Yeah.
Now I do.
You're going to use the board, Ron?
I got it now.
Well, I'm kind of thinking out loud here.
Okay.
If you have this type of tree structure,
I can't see.
you guard it
You'll be able to see on the camera in a minute.
with something like that, the tree guard, you're going to have less possibility to, like David was saying, to pull that trunk over, which happens quite often. And also, if there are some lower branches here, you can either prune them off, or this tree, depending on the diameter of that guard, could protect those younger branches until it's of an age where you can trim it without stressing the tree out too much.
I get it.
I'll see if we can include some language on tree guarding at that point and maybe reduce the height. But that,
it seems like the best.
I haven't been around the vandals to know what they actually.
we've actually had trees physically removed on East State Street.
Yeah, I think.
Between midnight and 3 a.m., trees are in great danger.
Yeah.
Okay.
It seems like the tree guard is the way to go.
Serious ordinance here.
Yeah, but that's
You have to bury those things pretty deep. What do you put in, 6-foot rebar or something? I mean, to anchor those tree yards?
That's a good question. I don't know. We've never done them in the city.
Like a 6-foot rebar.
We've priced it for some of the trees on
They are expensive.
Yeah, they're very
Court Street, but it's not cheap. I mean, you could add $1,000 to the price of planting a tree, because you probably want to put a grate around it as well at the same time, because that helps to hold the whole thing in place.
Oh, that's what it's anchored to.
It's anchored to the grate, yeah.
I understand.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Any other comments? Okay, well, the one other thing I wanted to do under policies, we have in Title 37 a rather intriguing clause. Under the general section, it says, if the specific application of the landscape requirements will seriously limit functions of the site, the Shade Tree Commission shall have authority to permit consolidation and or relocation of these landscape requirements elsewhere within the site, or to a public park or right-of-way within the city. Now, we've never actually pushed that one. We have discussed it at times, but I think what we need is a policy to help guide us and future tree commissioners in how we should implement that one. Because when it says will seriously limit functions of the site, I can see all sorts of people coming up with arguments as to why
They want
we
to
want to do
build
this.
on 100% of the site.
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, we've now got the city council have passed the thing that says that these sites have to, in certain areas at least, have to be 40% green, free of impermeable surface, however it's written. But that's only for R1s, R2s, isn't it? I think it doesn't cover business zones.
I believe it's residential.
Yeah.
Well, still, this policy allows us to make that decision about the site.
Yeah, but I think what we need to do is come up with some sort of consistent policy that we can then try and follow when we're doing this. And so I'd like us to be thinking about that as to how we would develop a policy around that would help guide us through that potential quagmire of issues.
The most common reason is typically utilities, infrastructure.
Yes, yeah, that's utilities. We've seen problems where a building was constructed, or a site was developed under preceding rules, and has now been expected to come into compliance with the general, with the codes of the city, and it would be not feasible to continue that business if, for example, you were required to implement the Title 37 landscape ordinance, and that's where you begin to get to a point. Well, do you have to do this? Now, I don't know what it comes. I'm looking at Alahu and maybe Ron. If that was a parking requirement that they hadn't conformed to, would they then have to conform to that, or would they then be coming to the Board of Zoning Appeals for a variance so that they wouldn't have to do it? And so, in that sense, we could also, in a parallel way, give a variance because of that type of issue. So that's another potential one that can come along. You've got a building destroyed by fire and you've got to rebuild it. Well, you've got to build it to the current code, but that could mean that the business couldn't operate if it lost a lot of the parking and a lot of the space and so on. So that might be grounds for a variance under this.
So you're thinking we would list various reasons for the variance? Is that what you're wanting to define?
I don't think I want to list. I want to come up with guiding language as to how you might judge these things, because it's too difficult to come up with a washing list of things that have to be
work in this situation.
That have to be followed. But I do think we need some guidance. The other thing is it just simply talks about consolidation and relocation of landscape requirements elsewhere within the site of the public park or right-of-way. Now, Ron spoke about banking of trees. One way to deal with this issue is to allow somebody to bank trees. So they wouldn't actually plant them. They would have to put money into an account within the city that would then pay for trees to be planted elsewhere. which would then become city trees and the responsibility of the city to maintain. So clearly they're getting a benefit at that point because they're not having to conform, and so we don't want people just saying, oh well, I'll buy myself a few trees and put them into the tree bank. We don't really want that to happen.
Could we have some language about whether the degree of hardship it would cause
Okay.
to the
Yeah.
business?
Any other suggestions at the moment?
I have a question. Regarding the variance process, would this meeting be the forum for that?
Yes. Yeah, it speaks at various points in the landscape ordinance about the tree commission having the authority to grant variances, but then right at the beginning in the general section it says that one way to deal with that is with this method of relocating the requirements elsewhere within the site or to a public park or right of way within the city. So
I don't think that we should grant the variance anytime it's just inconvenient and they would prefer not to do it.
It has to be for some reason physically impossible for them to comply, to plant the trees.
Or
I
very
remember we talked
difficult.
about exhausting all options at one point when we started talking about tree banking.
Yeah,
I mean, this happened.
that's not bad wording.
Yeah.
The college bookstore did their stuff. This was
Right.
like 3 years ago. I mean, there's physically no place for
Right.
them to put their trees. So we did something like that.
okay, I've got some words that'll get us started. But that was the next policy that I felt we really ought to try and get a grip on. So that's where we'll move.
And the Board of Zoning Appeals has a pretty defined protocol for their variances.
Yes.
So I wonder if looking at that or something similar to that might help.
Yep.
That sounds like a
Informing
good
it.
idea.
To get wording.
Yep. Okay. Are there any other items that we want to discuss before we go to the minutes of the last meeting? Do you have anything else, Ron?
No.
Okay. In that case, we will look at the minutes from the last meeting. See if I can find a copy. There we go. They're very short. I think Emily and I were the only two people there from the group who are here tonight. So I hope, Emily, you're going to propose that we accept the minutes of the last meeting.
I so move.
Thank you. Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Assuming there are no objections, we will have minutes then of our meeting from the 12th of April. Thank you. The next meeting of the Shade Tree Commission will be on June 14th, I believe, at 7 p.m. in the Council Chamber. Thank you. Good night.